This is OhioPodcast.com.
Episode 32, the National First Ladies Library, First Ladies and the Presidential Inauguration. Hello, Ohio Podcast Nation, and welcome back. If this is your first time listening, we'd like to welcome you too. This is Tom Sutman, your host. We decided to release our recent episode featuring Lucinda Frailly from the National First Ladies Library as a three-part series. This is part one, where we discuss the role of First Ladies during the presidential inauguration. In part two, Lucinda tells us some interesting stories about the First Ladies who have come from Ohio. In part three, she takes us on a mini tour of the National First Ladies Library and talks about the things you'll experience there when you go for a visit. If you like this or any of our Ohio Podcast episodes, please take a moment and like, share, follow, and retweet them on Facebook and Twitter. We really appreciate you spreading the word about Ohio Podcasts, and we can't thank you enough. So, now let's get on with this episode. We have on the line with us Lucinda Frailly. Lucinda is the Director of Education and Special Events Coordinator for the National First Ladies Library in Canton, Ohio. Lucinda Frailly, welcome to OhioPodcast.com.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
We're so happy to have you on. You know, we've been wanting to go to the First Ladies Library for a really long time, and we finally got the chance to do it over the recent holidays. What a beautiful place. You've got a couple beautifully restored buildings there, the library and the McKinley House, and I tell you what, Lucinda, it's really an impressive place.
Thank you. We think so. We think we're quite the something.
Well, you definitely are.
We are part of the National Park Service, too. You do know that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
in fact,
we are, our title, we do operate as the National First Ladies Library. We're in partnership with them. But we are also called the First Ladies National Historic Site because we are a national park. Yeah.
I have a national park passport, and
you do.
I got the stamp. Yeah,
sure did. Yeah, we have a junior ranger program here and everything, so it's really exciting.
With 2017 inaugural ceremonies taking place, this is the perfect time to talk about the role of the First Lady during the inauguration, and
yeah.
it hasn't always been like the way it is today, has it?
No, you're so right. Women again were considered very unimportant. Martha Washington was not in Philadelphia. New York. That was the first temporary capital when her husband George was inaugurated. And nobody really thought much of it. And neither was, for the inaugural, was Abigail Adams there. The first president's wife to really witness was Abigail, the second inauguration. And when Dolly Mattis witnessed it the first time in the capital in Washington when Washington became the permanent capital. But their attendance was there. That was basically it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it evolved over they just weren't important.
One of the first ladies was the first to ride in a car. The only reason I remember this is from the movie. You said that there's the theater there in the education center there. Something they said in that movie was about how one of the first ladies got into the car or something. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was Helen Taft. The ladies would just go to after time. They were on the podium or on the dais, but they weren't really seen. They came in, they sat down, they watched. That was it. Well, there was a tradition that going back to the White House after the swearing-in ceremony, that the president would ride back with the outgoing president. So the incoming was the outgoing, and then back to the White House they'd go. Teddy Roosevelt didn't want to ride back. He just wanted to go home or wherever he wanted to do. Teddy did what Teddy wanted to do. He didn't care about protocol. And Helen Taft saw that the carriage was open. She jumped in, and people told her she couldn't. Can you imagine? And she just, she didn't ignore them. She got in, she sat down, and she rode back with them, and that started a new tradition. The pictures, if you remembered seeing it of her in that carriage, they're so funny. She looked like the cat that ate the canary. And she even said something to the effect, again, I'm paraphrasing, I felt so proud because I was doing something that nobody had done before, no woman had done before, and I was doing it. Helen loved to be the first at things.
She was an interesting lady, that's for darn sure.
She was a character.
Yes. Now, there's also a story about the holding of the Bible that What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's actually the catalyst that got the First Lady sort of right with the president on the podium itself. I mean, the picture is taken now. The First Lady is there. That was, believe it or not, it took all these years. It was Lady Bird Johnson. It was President Johnson's inauguration. But this is the one where he was elected. And he asked his wife to hold their Bible. It was one that his mother had given him. And she was so touched by that. And that was so uncommon. Well, Lady Bird and Johnson had a great relationship. But it was so unusual for Johnson, to have asked something that poignant. Because he wasn't that kind of a man,
Mm-hmm.
But he asked her to do it, and she was so touched, and she did. You see her holding the Bible for him, and from that time on, First Ladies have held the Bible for their husbands. There is the lady there front and center, and up to that time, they had no official responsibility. In fact, that's probably not even official. It's just some Lady Bird tradition now that they do it.
To expand on the whole inauguration theme going on here, you have a very special exhibit going on there.
We do.
Why don't you tell us about it?
It's called Grand Entrance, Inaugural Pomp and Couture. And, of course, it's about the First Ladies. We have gowns that are, of course, the original inaugural gowns are at the Smithsonian. And these are reproductions, but some we had and some we commissioned. And they're beautiful. If they aren't the inaugural gown, because sometimes the inaugural gown just doesn't exist, then it's a gown that's associated with the First Lady, and maybe was used in an official capacity, at a state dinner, or was seen in a photograph, something like that. So those are all up. We have all the information is there. You may have seen these beautiful little half-size gowns that were designed by, Jackie Kennedy's designer of her wedding gown. Her name was Ann Lowe. The gowns are gorgeous. They were made for the promotion of a perfume called White Shoulders by the Evian Perfume Company. And they needed a home, and, all these gowns were shown in Saks Fifth Avenue and some of these big stores. And when they were done, they were done. So Smithsonian didn't want them, but hey, we did. And they are beautiful. But there's all of that and all the information on the designers of their handbags and the designer herself or himself, and the shoes that hurt every single First Lady at the inaugural ball. There isn't one that didn't complain about her shoes. And we have films up about the inauguration and how the First Lady's role became slowly in there. Important, not as important, of course, as the taking of that oath, but still, how it evolved in our history. There's another one that's more silent, but it's the First Lady's dancing, and that was such a fun one to do. And so people will learn a lot about that whole inauguration and how it began from the time of George Washington up to now. It was a fun and fascinating and very, shocking and enlightening thing to learn, too.
Right.
It was fun for us. It was some things I didn't certainly know.
Yeah,
that's one good thing. With every new exhibit, we learn new things.
Right, and there's definitely plenty there to learn.
There is.
How long will the exhibit be on display then?
It'll be up until September the 15th.
Okay.
That's when it runs. So it's up for a nice long time. We wanted people to be able to... We knew there'd be some interest after the inauguration. In the summer, we're in flux with people, and we knew this one would be popular, and so we're leaving it up for a little bit longer than we normally do.
Okay. Now, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that the lives of Ohio's 8 First Ladies are basically a microcosm of the advancement of women throughout the history of the United States.
Well, first of all, Tom, it's a common...
This has been part 1 of our podcast series featuring the National First Ladies Library. Go to ohiopodcast.com to listen to part 2 on the First Ladies from Ohio, and to part 3, where we take you on a mini tour of the National First Ladies Library. We want to thank Lucinda Frailly for being such a wonderful guest. Please help spread the word about Ohio Podcasts to your family and friends on Facebook and Twitter. You can also get all Ohio Podcast episodes downloaded for free by clicking on the iTunes button. From all of us here at ohiopodcast.com, thank you for listening.